So I think we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 4:07. Dr. Sal is busy on a vacation in Japan. Chrissy said she'd run the meeting, but was gonna run a little late, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kick us off so we can get started, in interest of everybody's time. Also, he doesn't know I'm gonna do this, but I wanna recognize Blaine Williams in the back. He's our council member from the Southeast Ward and wanted to come today to see what all the Parks Board's doing. So we want to thank him for being with us today. But the first order of business is consider approval of minutes from the August 26th, 2024 meeting and the September 30th, 2024 meeting.
Approve.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank y'all. Our next item is receive updates on parks and recreation projects, and we're gonna have Joy run through some of the fun stuff that's been going on lately.
So I see up there first. Oh, okay, thank you. So here are some of the projects that we've been working on so far. We have our, it's a little bit loud. The Lenana Creek Trail, this is a picture of them redoing that footbridge. And then a picture of our Temple splash pad that they're currently in the process of installing. So this is kind of where we're at right now with that project. And if there's any other updates about the trail.
So on the trail, another really exciting thing I'm very excited about. So this section of Lenana Creek Trail is right near the Park Street intersection. It was a footbridge that it didn't fall out like the retaining wall did, but every time it flooded, we kept losing boards and the handrail, and it was in really bad condition. So this was a project that was done by one of our Rotary clubs here in town, completely free of charge to the city. We just had one staff member out there supervising, so they did a wonderful job. And after this was fixed, they mentioned, we had like 40 people that walked past during the day. Rod was out there, had a lot of people still using it. So like we know, even though we have the trail marked off, that people are going around our construction fence. So I met out there with our engineering department, talked to our city attorney, city manager, and kind of said, okay, we don't have a plan for fixing the retaining wall yet, but can we open the trail back up? Because from the Martinsville entrance, you can see where our construction fencing is, and then people have made like a little cattle trail around a tree and around the fence, and it's on a huge slope, and I'm just praying no one tumbles down that hill, because they're getting onto the trail in a very unsafe way. So what we're gonna do is remove that construction fencing from the Martinsville entrance and do construction fencing all around the retaining wall that's fallen out. So at least that way, they're still on the trail, there is some risk, but it's a lot less than trying to like essentially climb the side of a cliff or a little trail right there. So we're gonna do that construction fencing around that retaining wall while we're still waiting on engineers to give us some plans, do some cost estimates. So at least that way, Martinsville the park will be open and people can walk it. So we're really excited about that. It should take us about a week to get the construction fencing moved, reinstalled, and then there's a few little trees and things that have to be cleared out to make that area passable.
There is right where they fixed this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're walking towards Martinsville.
Okay.
And that ends, there's a railing made out of like 8x8s, railroad ties or something, and that is still down.
Okay.
And broken, and that's dangerous.
Okay.
That's actually more dangerous than.
Are you talking about right at the end of the boardwalk?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something Tommy's seen too, and he was confident his guys can fix it, because it looks like it was built with railroad ties that were cut in half, either that or buried pretty deeply in there. So they're gonna fix that, and then there's 2 or 3 trees that the little cattle trail off to the side now from where the retaining wall came out need to be trimmed out so you actually have a passable area. So they're gonna do those things. It should take them about a week or so to get it truly passable, and then we'll do a big announcement on Facebook and tell people it's back open. So it's not 100% complete, but it's a lot closer. So we're really excited about that. And then Temple Splash Pad, they're hoping to pour the concrete this week, depending upon the forecast, because it's looking more and more like rain on Thursday, and they need a certain amount of time from when they pour it to let it set before it gets wet again. So should be this week, depending on the forecast and if the rain changes at all. That's all I have.
Any questions on those two comments? Okay. And then we also wanted to let everybody know about a grant that we received. So this is the State Energy Conservation Office grant, and we are awarded, as you can see there, a total of $29,967.20. And that amount is gonna go towards those things listed below, which is a new AC unit for an AC unit that's currently out in our recreation center. And then, $4,890 towards library lights, which will be changing their regular lights to LED lights. And then another $14,000 for lights at baseball. So, and that is again changing to LED energy efficient lights, and that's how we were able to get that grant. So we just wanted everybody to know that we are working on towards getting more energy efficient lights, and this grant is great. It is basically free money. We spend the money, but then they reimburse us 100%. So.
Yeah, and this is money we budgeted for anyway in our city budget, and so we're gonna spend money we already planned and then get paid back for it, so it's free. I'm really excited. And this grant is specifically for parks, recreation, and facilities that are used as emergency shelters.
Yes.
And from what we can tell, we can apply for it over and over.
That was my next
Yep.
question. That's
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful.
We're gonna apply for it as many times as they will let us at
They'll
this
do
point.
it, yeah.
And honestly, we found out about this one very close to the deadline, so I was really proud of our staff being able to get it in there and get it done, because we would have asked for a lot more had we had a little bit more time, but now that we're aware of the grant, it was actually brought to our attention by our maintenance man, Mike Scott, so we're thankful for him bringing that to our attention, but now that we know to look out for it, we'll have more time to prep for it, because we would like to do a lot more lights, especially at our softball complexes, outdoor areas that have the very big, expensive lights, but that $14,000 was already in the budget, so we're like, we might as well ask for it.
Do we have any obligations with that, other than just doing what it's for?
So we will have to meet with the State Energy Conservation Office, and they have to approve whatever we're gonna order. And so it really is just, it has to be high efficiency LED lights, so they have some specifications, but from what we looked at, it's nothing crazy.
Cool.
Because really it's just for energy efficiency, so they wanna make sure that energy efficient LED, that all those boxes are ticked.
Good job.
Yeah.
We're excited.
We're very, very excited. All right, so next up, we wanted to update you all on where we're at with Moroni Playground. So there are a couple pictures of an aerial view of the playground originally, and then the specification of the highlighted portion is the portion that
That's the portion that burned.
we're replacing. So want to give you an idea of like what we're looking at to start with, and then we're just getting basically ideas at this point. So we were going to show you a couple different ideas, and then if you guys have any ideas of what you think you would like to see there, then if you want to let us know via email, give us a call, however you want to do it. But this is kind of some of the things that we saw so far, different wood structures, and so really we're just kind of looking for ideas of what else to put.
And one thing, Joy, will you go back to the other slide?
Yeah.
I want to point out something real fast. I'm just gonna do this. So I met with Ken Jones from Cox Contractors, who's our contractor for this. So right here, and here, originally these connected to each other. Those are the big structural elements that we are gonna have to either reattach them or do ways down from those. Otherwise, you kind of run to that area, you stop, and you have to run back. So what Ken is planning on doing is coming up with an option on how we connect those two areas back again. We talked about doing 2 slides at the end, but slides are very, very, very expensive when you start buying the plastic ones that last for a long time or metal ones. So he's gonna come up with a price for what it takes to reconnect those and have another way down, which may be a rock wall or a ropes course or something like that, and give us that price, and then kind of tell us, okay, this portion's gonna cost $20,000. So you have $30,000 to play with still to do some other freestanding stuff. We're also gonna have to do some selective demo because some of that structure is still there, but has a lot of charred remains on it, which the wood still has a lot of structural integrity, but we're never gonna be able to get that char off, and we're gonna have every kid touching it. And then every parent is gonna call and yell at me when their kids come back with just soot all over them. So we are gonna have to do some selective demolition, connect those 2 elements together, and then see what money we have left to play with to add new. So that's essentially what we're asking for is, once we connect those two elements, do the demolition, and add the new freestanding stuff, like what would y'all like to see? And so Joy, you can go to that next slide that has
Yeah.
some of those examples. And those are just some pictures we pulled up of like some little freestanding stuff. And just wanted to see what y'all thought about anything you'd seen at other parks, any kind of ideas you had.
So, and you, this is information that you can take with you, and don't feel like you have to let us know right this second. If you wanna look at other parks that are mostly wood parks to see what other people have done and things that maybe would be really good to incorporate here, that would be great. That's kind of where most of these pictures have come from, is other wooden parks. So if there is anything specific you've seen somewhere else, you're like, it would be great if we had X, Y, Z. So we're just kind of putting it out there now, because we're not quite ready to make those decisions as of right this second.
Yeah, Ken should have a price estimate back to us in the next 2 weeks or so, once they go out there and mark all the wood that has to come out, kind of come up with an option or two to connect those, and then after that, we'll kind of have a better idea of what price we're looking at. But we just didn't know if y'all like the idea of doing more of the climbing structures, or the, we had a few, what was it, like little walkways that were out there, like balance beam type things.
You had a balance beam, you had a bridge out there that were connected,
Mhm.
then you had that other aspect of the rings that went across over there, but I don't think those have got burnt down, did they?
No, the rings didn't. We do have a little metal kind of zip line thing. That a small little portion of that got charred, but also that zip line, it's really cool, but the handle gets ripped off all the time. So there was actually some discussion on like, do we keep those 4 posts and do a platform bottom on it and put a picnic table? So there's like a picnic table within the playground area. So that could be an option as well.
Could we put the face-to-face swings that we have at other playgrounds there?
We could, I'll have to see how big it is, because of
Okay.
course with swings, you have to have a certain
Right.
area so no
Yeah,
one gets
that's
kicked in the
all swings,
face.
yeah.
But we can do the measurement and see if we could put more swings over there. Cause I think we have 2 sets of swings right now, but we could see if we could do
Yeah,
a smaller one or a more specialized one.
yeah. Or maybe different hardware for the zip line portion that maybe would be more structured.
Yeah, and we'd also talked about where that zip line is, maybe taking the zip line portion off and doing like 2 sets of monkey bars so kids could race back and forth against each
yeah.
other. I always think that's fun.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I can check on swings and see what our fall zone is on that.
You know, the car area is always a big hit with my kiddos.
Won't you also have the aspect though, cause that's downhill in terms of the declivity right there where that is, so that would also become a problem too in the upswing, wouldn't it?
Maybe,
Maybe
I'll
I'll
have to
just
see
see
what the
the
grade
space,
is over
yeah.
there. It's, I mean, it's relatively flat, there is a bit of a grade.
I know the zip line is farther down and
Mhm.
everything else was, especially as you get closer to that bottom fence, it drops, I'm not gonna say a lot, but definitely quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at the grade and the fall area around that.
Why not just put an obstacle course in like you see in American Ninja Warrior and just let the kids race and run, so you already have the first part there when you think about it.
Mhm.
Just replace it back, you know what I mean, so little walls kind of like this where the kids can be active and then
Mhm.
tackle each other.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we were leaning a bit, is instead of adding equipment, add more of like the wooden climbing stuff where it's more of a natural playscape. I kind of like the bottom right photo where the kids like climb over the peak and climb back down. Or even the top right photo where it's like it's a thing to climb on and climb through, and
The top
matches
look
kind of
cool.
with our playground that we currently have.
I guess we couldn't put a merry-go-round in.
Those are a little harder to do now because of a lot of safety concerns. You have to have a big fall area, and most people put those on port-in-place structure that have a little bit more cushion. But there are some spinning elements, and there's zip lines and things like that we can look into. So it's not off the table, they're just a little bit harder to sell because of safety concerns that people have.
So yeah, so just, if you guys come up with anything, feel free to email or give us a call, or, you know, however you'd like to get that information. And then we'll be kind of looking at these in the future.
And the good thing on that, once we land on a design and officially sign it, when I was talking to Ken, he said, well, once we get a design, we come up with a start date, it should take 2 weeks. Which I think is pretty fast, which is awesome. And our goal, and of course we don't have the exact date, and we'll send this out to y'all. We would like to do like a big Saturday, like reopening of Moroni. And leading up to that, either like that Wednesday and Thursday or Thursday and Friday during the day, we'd like to do kind of a park cleanup day. And invite y'all to come out and help with our parks crew. You know, we're gonna have to put new playground mulch and rake it all out. There's a chalkboard wall out there that Pal put up years ago that needs to be repainted with chalkboard. There's always trash to pick up, just kind of sprucing it up. And of course, that would be during the day, during the week, so we know everybody works. So if you have time to come by during your lunch break, or if you don't go until later, we'd love to have y'all come help us kind of spruce it back up. And then that way we'll do a big reopening on like a Saturday. And we'll probably have like a food truck out there and, you know, some fun things, and remind people that like Maroney Playground is still here and back open. So we're excited to do that.
So that's pretty much all for our updates.
And in the interest of time, we have park restroom project options on here is next, but I would like to skip that one and go to McCrimmon Park Playground just so we can get that done, because we do have a bit of a time limit on that one. And then as time allows, we can go back to the restroom and do that last, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay. So this is just a reminder of what we currently have at Robert McCrimmon Park. And then we did get some information from Game Time, and okay, so that's like the overhead look. And this is their proposed design. You guys all have that in front of you, so if you can't really see what's happening up there, you can look at it a little bit closer in front of you. This one I feel like is kind of hard to like visualize, but it's just the drawing of it. And then the next slide, which is the next 2 pages of paper, those ones are the actual equipment that they're specifying in there. So I wanted you all to have that information in case you were trying to figure out what each thing was on the pictures. But here are what I think is easier to see. So here is the rendering that they've done. They've chosen colors that match the basketball court. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I'll kind of scroll through. You guys let me know if there's certain ones you want to stop on, go back to. So just different angles, and this is like the main structure from a different angle. So that kind of, if you can see, most of it is all connected. And so they did that to be able to make sure that the most amount of items can be included in that grant. So basically the breakdown of it is playground equipment is $222,000. We have that grant in the amount of $100,605. The cost for Nacogdoches for the playground is gonna be $135,234, with an also install cost, because that was not included in the grant, of $89,157. So the total cost that we will be paying would be $224,391. And just a reminder that the budget we had was $240,000. All of this information, the things that are not included, is playground mulch at about approximately $3,000, and then we like a drinking fountain if we wanted to add that as well. But in these pictures, let's see where I can find one where you can see it. They do have the bike racks that we talked about, and then there's a bench there.
There's actually 3 benches.
And I was
in
gonna
the-
say, yeah, there's another one over there.
And there's one on the opposite side.
One on the other side, I think.
There are a lot of elements packed in that.
Yes, there
It's
are
a
a
very
lot of
big
those.
playground.
So, any questions, comments? This is up for discussion for you guys now.
How would it be arranged on the property? Would the structure be
Yeah.
close to the basketball court, or would the swings be a
Or
separate?
we use
So
that
you're talking about
existing
placement,
pad.
right?
Oh, so
Yes.
the swings essentially run parallel with the basketball court.
So that
So-
would be swings on, like over here, right?
Yeah.
Yes, roughly right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of run in parallel to the basketball court. And it's a much bigger footprint than we currently have, because even the original McCrimmon playground was a little bit bigger, but as elements got removed, we kind of moved the playground borders down. So it is a lot bigger, and we're really excited. Game Time worked very hard to make everything connected, because as you remember from the last meeting,
Yeah.
if it's connected in the actual playground unit, that's eligible for the grant. So every single thing, it may seem like it's a random bar here or there, but they did that so that way it all qualifies for the grant, other than the swings. And we have 2 or 3 little standalone elements that don't qualify.
curious, what happens to the equipment that is there now?
So if it's still usable, like if, the little monkey bars, like if that's still usable, we'll pull them out and we'll put them at a different park that hasn't been updated yet. Like there's Lakeside Park that's over behind, or near Lowe's, like across the street. It's a little bit smaller, it really only has like 2 or 3 swings right now and isn't part of the bond project, but it's still a cute little playground. We use it for, kid fish every year. So if they're still usable, we'll put them at a different park.
And I see that neighborhood, like those kiddos use that little area uses that a lot, so.
Yeah, because we did the same thing with, I think Pecan Park, when we redid it, there was like a little steel, like outline of a house that's used as like, monkey bars and stuff. And that one got moved out to Lake Nack West and is still there right now. And even when we replace that playground, like that's still in good shape, so we're gonna shift that one somewhere else too. So we do that, and there's a few things that Tommy and his crew are really good about extending the life of some of these products, and so some of them are very far past their usability. So those would be recycled, thrown away, but then the elements that still work will just be moved to a different park. And the only changes that our staff has identified so far is you can see the little spinner to the right-hand side that's like a standalone spinner, the little blue one.
Blue, yeah.
We have one of those at Ritchie Street. Tommy doesn't love it just because it's meant for children to sit on and spin. We all know teenagers and adults do too sometimes, which is fine. But we have a hard time keeping the bolts in there. Game Time does have another comparable product that isn't set at an angle and it's set flat. That's called a Stargazer. That we're hoping to switch that out. Actually, the Stargazer is a little bit cheaper. That's meant to lay flat, and you can either sit crisscross on it and have your friends spin you, or lay down on your back and spin around in a circle. So we're looking at switching that, and then one panel that goes under the other is called like Space Race or something. Has 2 little elements that the kids are supposed to move along. Those tend to get pulled off very quickly. We found another element that matches kind of some of the holes in the panels and has a little thing that you spin that sounds like a rain stick. And those are a little bit harder to destroy or pull off. They've got a lot of longevity, so we're gonna see if those 2 things can be switched out, but they're roughly the same price. So those are the only 2 things our staff has identified as things we wanna switch.
So how many kids will that playground hold at one time? Are we looking at 20 kids? Cause what I'm getting at is there's 2 benches and there's no shade.
There's 2 what?
There's 2 benches and there's no shade.
Okay.
We discussed.
On the other side.
Yeah, there is one on the other side you
Okay,
can't
so
see
there's
right now.
3 benches
Yeah.
and no shade. The adults like to sit in the shade. We had talked about that last time. Is there any provisions for shade for the onlookers?
We can look into it. Some of the playground, and since we don't have the full renderings on here as far as where our trees are, there is like the back section. If you're looking at this picture, the back section is a bit more shaded. So we can look and see if our budget would allow to do shade over the park benches, or if it would make more sense to move the park benches all to the back side that's all shaded. So I can look. Shades are just traditionally very expensive. So traditionally you do the ones that are built into the playground because it's all one cohesive piece. But I can certainly ask and see what that price would be.
Where will you put trash cans?
What was that?
Trash cans.
We can place them wherever we need to. The city does budget for 10 replacement trash cans each year for the parks. And so when we put in new ones, we just do usually 2 to 3 at the new playgrounds. And usually it's Tommy and his crew pick where they think work the best. I think there's one at the pavilion now.
Yeah.
And I think there's one at the basketball court. So we would probably add 1 to 2 more for the playground. And traditionally we do it kind of around the entrance and then near one of the benches, is what you'll see at the majority of the parks. But we do have that in our current city budget.
Are there current drinking fountains with the basketball court? Are there already drinking fountains? Because we mentioned that as something we may add, drinking fountains out there already.
And they did give us a price, because I had them, the way they gave us the quote is, here's the playground equipment, swings, because those are kind of your non-negotiables. They added in 3 benches and the bike rack because those came up over and over and over in our discussion. And so we wanted kind of our non-negotiables in there. Then they gave me a separate price for drinking fountains, which was buying the drinking fountain and installing it. I did get back with them today and let them know the city has about 5 drinking fountains we just recently purchased, and if I handed one over, would they install it? And they said yes. So we'll be able to add that. There is an installation cost because you have to run the plumbing and make sure all that's put out there. So we are gonna add that. It was, I think, $7,000-ish to do that, but we'll be able to shave off a bunch of that because we already have the drinking fountain, so that'll be exciting. So we will add that one to it. And another thing that came up was doing some sort of sidewalk or walking track all the way around the playground so the parents could use it. They gave us a quote for that. It was about $34,000 because we asked for poured concrete. And of course I told them, put that on a separate bid because I don't have the money for that. There is another organization in town, the Parks Advocacy League, that has been raising money from McCrimmon. And so we're gonna talk with them and see how they would like to contribute, if a walking path is something they wanna do, or if it's, adding something else to the area. So that one, and the good thing about that is, since it is a separate item, was bid separately, we can always do a secondary contract for that if we decide to do it later. And also it doesn't change the layout of this, so they kind of did the design so that the walking path would go around this playground.
I like that idea, just for parents to walk, but also for kids to ride bicycles and all that, because streets just aren't safe places for them to do that.
Yeah, and that was kind of the intent, but knowing that we asked for poured concrete, I was like, this is gonna be expensive, so we might as well put that on a different estimate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will add the drinking fountain, and then depending on what donation we get, or how PAL chooses to use the money that they've raised from McCrimmon, then we may add the walking pad or something entirely separate.
How handicap accessible is this playground?
So they do have a few elements. Joy, can you flip? I don't know what slide it's on.
I see a transport platform.
Yeah, so there's a transport
Yeah.
platform at the bottom.
Yeah.
Down here, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a way
Ramp up to
in,
it, yeah.
this slide, I can't think what it's called.
That's it's got rollers.
Yeah,
So
roller
kiddos
slide.
that have cochlear implants can use it.
Yeah, they have the roller slides, things like that. And so they do have accessibility. It's not as much for mobility devices like Ritchie Street is. Just because if you do it accessible for more of the mobility devices and fully handicap accessible with wheelchairs and things like that, it's a lot of port in place. So this has a lot more of the sensory items to it, has a lot of the accessibility into the playground area. We have music elements in here. One of the big things they have in it is like their biggest chime. The kids walk past and hit it, and it makes this huge chiming sound. So we do have elements like that. And then we also incorporated a lot of the rope structure, because that was a big discussion at the last meeting, and doing some stuff for somewhat older kids, because we don't have a lot of rope elements at some of our other playgrounds. So we did incorporate that as well.
I've seen a very similar to this design that does have handicap, but it's off to the side. It's in Frankston,
Okay.
on 175, like you're going to Athens. If at that light, you'll take a turn and go about half a block, they've got that little
Right.
park in there, and they have come back and put in handicap stuff.
Yeah.
They use that same wall, and it's working really well.
Yeah.
We can certainly look into that. Yeah, and the cool thing about these game time structures is that basically everything clicks together in different methods. So even if it's something that isn't in this
Yeah.
initial design, it may be something we can add on to as well. But I'll definitely look up that playground and see if I can find some reference pictures for it.
I like the transfer platforms and all that, because kids do use those. So those are good. The roller slide is more inclusive. I think it looks like a fun playground. I like the design. I think they incorporate a lot of the things we asked for.
I think it's fun. I like the rock, or what they call it, the mountain climber, which is on the far right. And you
Yeah.
like climb up and then kind of jump off the end of it.
Yeah.
Cause I know my kid's gonna be jumping off the top of it.
Yeah.
So I think he'll have a good time doing that.
Yeah.
And so Joy, if you wanna go to that last slide on this one, just to give you all a rundown of kind of where we go, next one, sorry, where we go next. So of course, we'll take all the feedback from this meeting, and then if y'all have reference pictures, things you think of after we leave, because I know we didn't get these to y'all, beforehand, so this is your first glance at them. But if you can give us any feedback by November 1st, which of course is this Friday, we will send all that over to Game Time. We are in a bit of a time crunch just because we want to qualify for this grant. If not, we are gonna have to pay almost every dime of our budget just on the playground structure. So really, if y'all will call us, email us, send us pictures of anything you think of or any feedback by November 1st, we'll send all that to Game Time. The contract, which is a design build contract with a not to exceed amount for Game Time, will be on the council meeting on November 5th. It's for that full $240,000. Doesn't mean we're gonna spend all of it, it just means we cannot go over that, so it puts that limit in there. And then November 14th is when the signed contract and the final design has to be approved in 2 Game Time, so that way we can qualify from the grant. So any feedback you send us, we'll send over to them. In our agreement, we have another rendition or rendering they'll get us, and we'll incorporate feedback where possible. If you kind of say like, I want 100 more swings, I can't incorporate that because we don't have the money for it. But we'll incorporate if possible. You know, if there's a shade structure we can put over a playground bench that we can afford, we'll absolutely add that. But we'll have all that signed with Game Time by November 14th so we can qualify for that grant. And then once it's signed, they approve it, stamp it on their end, then they'll give us an installation time frame. Usually in the past, I think, and this is some of my knowledge is pre-COVID of ordering their stuff, it took 4 to 6 weeks to get all of the stuff to their warehouse. Once everything's there, inventoried, then they come, they do the site work and prep everything, and then they bring their install team after that. Usually once they're here, it takes maybe a week,
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks at the absolute, and this one I don't know since it has more of the ropes element, I don't know if that takes longer to install or not. But I think Bonita, it took maybe a week and a half to put it up. And then we just have to have a little bit of time to put that playground mulch in there, and then we're off to the races. So we're pretty excited, so this will start to move pretty quickly. I know we desperately need rain in town. I just don't want it to start raining in December and not stop until spring, because then that will delay all this. But we're pretty excited to start moving on this. So do y'all have any other questions or feedback on this one so far? Perfect. And we'll send out an email reminder midweek and remind y'all that if you have feedback, we just need it by Friday, so that way Game Time doesn't pester me to death, because they need to hear back from us too. All right, so we'll back up a bit and go to our park restroom project options. And this was just kind of, we talked about it a bit at, not our last meeting, but the one before, about some of our park restroom options, so we wanted to kind of refresh y'all on those. I know Dr. Sal really wanted to be here for this discussion, so this may be more of us giving you some information, getting some direction, and then having it back up on another meeting, because again, these are bond-funded projects, but there's nothing in our current tranche for building these restrooms yet. We do have money in there for design. It has not been allocated to a architect or anything like that. So we're still very much in the discussion phases, so please don't feel like we have to make a hard and fast decision on anything today, but we did just want to kind of bring this back up.
So the information that, because the discussion, just in case that there was anyone that wasn't here for this meeting, previous meeting, the discussion was about some of our smaller parks and whether there was an option to pare down the restrooms at those smaller parks as opposed to having the similar restroom to, say, Festival Park or Pecan Park. So we did some research to, try to get you all of the information. And based on the information that we got, if we downsized the restrooms, it would decrease the building size by about 22%. But it would only decrease the cost, the savings that you would get would only be 15% of savings. The other issue that we ran into, because we were looking at the prefab, which I know some of you have talked about, the prefab option to make it a single restroom, based on the information that we got from some other places, that was that prefab single restroom, which is what you see right here on this picture. Wanted that for reference. This is a building where it's literally you open the door and you're in the actual bathroom with the toilet and the sink. And they were saying that this type of single bathroom restroom is not recommended, simply because they're then locking it from the inside and able to stay as long as they see fit in said restroom. So the recommendation was, if you're going to do a smaller single restroom, that it is still open door, but you have one partition for that particular stall. So because of that, that definitely makes it the prefab smaller one. Keep that in mind when we go to the price list, because it does look like it's less, but it's not the recommended option as far as the locking portion of it. And so they recommended that we have at least one toilet partition maintained within that space. And then there are several aspects of the building that would need to be redesigned, architectural, ADA compliant, to make sure that wheelchairs and things like that can make it through. And just like the structure of the system in general, if we go with the custom build, which is what we currently have at the buildings, is a custom build, not a prefab. And there is a separate design fee of $12,500 to redesign to a smaller restroom. And that would obviously be in addition to any other, you know, design fees and things like that that we already have. So this is, we kind of showed this one before, but we didn't have numbers last time, so we didn't know what that new number would look like. But the prefab single, which is that single restroom with the only locking from the inside option, with the design, the site prep and the design and the cost of the building, would be a total cost of $184,000. The prefab double is more than our custom build at $296,190, and then our custom build, which is what we currently were doing at the other parks, since we've already done it, that design prep and everything is included, and so that cost is $260,000. If we did a custom build single, which is what we talked about, you'd save about 15%, which is that, I put an asterisk because I just did math, and whether that's exactly right, I don't know, but approximately $221,000, and then of course your extra design and prep fee of $12,500, leaving you at about $233,500 for that total cost. So we just wanted to make sure that we got all this information to you all after we, you know, did some research and were able to bring it to you.
Do y'all have any questions or concerns or anything y'all would like us to do additional research on with some of these? Because I love the idea of the prefabs until we got to looking into them, and a lot of the prefab singles, like Joy said, is literally just a restroom and a restroom essentially standalone, and then people can lock themselves in there for as long as they'd like to. If we don't add partitions, which means you have to have extra area for ADA compliance and things like that. So they look really good on paper, but then for some of our needs and some of the concerns we had in the community, I don't know how they work necessarily.
So where did these prices come from?
So the prefab, single and double, what company?
Was it Green?
It's the one Dr. Sal
Yeah.
sent us. We've looked at about 4 different prefab companies, and they're all right in that same range. This exact one, I think, is the one that Dr. Sal sent us, and I don't remember the Cortex. Is there
Yes.
like an A&M?
Yes.
Is there like College Station area? Because we were looking at a Texas-based one. The custom build, that number is from Army Curtis, who designed the first one, and that's what we essentially paid for the ones we just put in. And then the custom build single, that was the same estimate from Army Curtis, who's been the architect for those restrooms. So we went to him and said, if we were gonna take this current double restroom that we've been building and we were gonna scale it back and make it a little smaller, what would you charge us to redesign it? Because there is some redesign that has to go into it. How much do you think it would save us on building, and what are some of the advantages and pitfalls? And so we got those numbers from him just to see what it would take him. And I mean, there is an option if you wanted a totally different new design, that's fine, but there are costs included in that. So this was just to scale down the current version we had. We thought that'd be
We're
a cheaper
not
version.
obligated, nobody has this job, we're not obligated to
No.
anybody. I would entertain seeing some new designs and putting it out for bids locally and see who can build it for what price.
Okay.
I think this is expensive, I just think it is, and I think we can do better by putting it out locally for, get some designs first. And I see you guys are doing great work here, but, I just think local contractors can build these things cheaper.
And we can I'll have to check with our finance department and legal, because there are some specifications in state laws that cities can't go out for bid for architecture services, because if we say, give us your best restroom bid, it's gonna be comparing apples to oranges to grapefruits type thing. So there are some provisions there. I think we can still do a request for qualifications and ask for different architects and what they would charge us, to redo it, so that is an option. But I don't know if we can necessarily ask for designs and bid it out that way, but
No, I think if you get the designs and then put it out, I think that's the way to go. I mean, there's concrete companies in town that'll build it, there's, contractors that'll build it, and I think we can do better than that. And especially better than the design we put into the parks existing. I don't like it, period, but that's, you know, if everybody likes it, that's great, but, I'd like to see some alternatives.
Yeah, and as far as, just so everybody knows, since I know not everybody was on this board when we did the first park restrooms,
Yeah.
anything that's over $50,000 has to be publicly posted. It's on the website. It's sent to 3 or 4 different listservs of contractors, and then we wait to see who gives us back bids. From my knowledge, and of course I wasn't running these restroom projects at the time, I can go back and check. I don't think we had a lot of local buyers or local contractors that wanted to bid on it. At first, we were bidding them out individually, and then we said we're gonna bid this out as whoever our contractor is gonna be is gonna build all 4 of them. So we did get some economy of scale on that, so that was good and dropped the price a little bit. But no matter who designs it or what design, we will have to go out to bid for the actual build portion of it. And so that 260, I really hope it holds at 260. These numbers are about 2.5 years old. So I hope they hold at 260. They may come in under. We may have a local contractor that says, yes, I can do 5 of these because I can order the products for a lot cheaper. We may not have a single contractor that replies, at least locally. But no matter who does the design or what design it is, it does have to go out in that bid process.
The only thing I know, at the last meeting, I was the one that said, what happened to the cinder block building with the toilet and the urinal? But the hindsight of that is, I think if you're gonna put restrooms in eventually all the parks, I think it should be basically the same restroom.
I agree.
I mean, why should Peroni have, and Pecan have, and have these really nice restrooms?
Well, because they see more people. Because some parks see a lot more visitors than other parks.
You want to put the same restrooms in at Lake Nacogdoches, and all they're doing is upgrading those, and they don't worry about whether anybody's in there locking them up there either. You know, a single. So,
I just think the different parts of town should basically have the same nice restrooms.
And just to say one thing about the Lake Nacogdoches restrooms, we chose to renovate those versus brand new ones because they were still working. The ones at these other parks were out of commission, the plumbing wasn't working, sewer was out. They were somewhat dangerous because they were that old, like essentially wrapped metal around metal posts that were starting to rot and stuff at the bottom. So those were taken down for safety's sake, so we had to rebuild. For the lake, you know, the structure was still good, minus the one that got hit by a tree and demolished. It was still good till it got hit by a tree. But those were still functioning, they just needed some upgrades. So that's why that decision was made, but I wanted to clarify that.
I know from a maintenance standpoint, it makes sense to have as much consistency as you can and for long term as parks, because parks do eventually go out, and when they're consistent, we're able to buy in bulk. I also know that when parks have nice facilities, the people come. So,
You know, there's definitely different schools of thought about, you know, some of them, you know, Moroni obviously is very heavily used, Festival Park is very heavily used, Bonita Creek Park is very heavily used, but they weren't as much until we started putting multi-use courts and new playgrounds and other things like that. So there is 2 schools of thought that it's not as used, so we don't put as much, or if you start putting more, it drives up the usage. I'm not here to say which one's better or more valid or anything like that, but those are kind of the 2 things that we look at in this community.
when these bathrooms are designed, I would like to see them be designed with a water fountain
Okay.
built into the outside, since pretty much there are no working water fountains in our parks. We have lots of nice places for birds to land, but you can't get a drink of water. Now, truthfully, most people nowadays don't trust the water fountain, they want bottled water that came from another faucet somewhere else, but they're not gonna drink out of the water fountain, so. I just think it would be cheaper to put the fountain in with the bathroom that's already got all the plumbing and everything, and running lines out across the park.
Yeah,
Just want
absolutely.
a mirror.
You want a what?
Mirror.
A mirror that's not the metal little mirror that's there?
Oh, yeah, that little metal block down there.
I know, and a lot of those decisions, they're not always the prettiest design, but we do try to make them public proof.
Yeah.
We've even seen like, the city of Tyler, who we deal with their parks department a lot, they had a restroom, they put in all porcelain toilets, and someone went in with a baseball bat and broke every one of them. Which is why people complain we have those stainless
Yeah.
steel toilets. I'm like, I know, they're ugly, they're super easy to clean, and they're very durable though.
Right.
So, it's a bit of a trade-off to make it, you know, so commercially available and usable, but also you kind of sacrifice some of the look.
But speaking of clean, how often do these restrooms get cleaned?
Depends on which park you're looking at.
Let's go to Maroni.
Maroni is a daily,
Right.
or a Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And that's if it fits their schedule
Yeah.
or if there's, yeah.
Speaking
So-
of
Yeah.
Maroni
So I'm just gonna
restaurant,
tell this story real quick. The last tournament,
Mhm.
on Saturday, some of the volunteer gals that were running the tournament went into the, I don't know about the men's side, but I know on the ladies' side, with cleaning stuff because they were just full of spiders.
Okay.
Sunday morning, I had something at church to do, so I went out to Maroni to the intention, change clothes in the bathroom. So stalls were full, so I'm like, okay, well, I can start right here at the mirror, so I took off my shoes. So I had my white socks on,
Mhm.
and I walked from the sink into the handicap and back, and my white socks were black. They're not getting, if they're telling you they're cleaning them daily, they are not. Those bathrooms are not getting cleaned.
Well, they're definitely not getting cleaned Saturday and Sunday, like you mentioned for that tournament. They're getting cleaned Monday through Friday.
Yeah, but I'm there every day, and they're not getting cleaned on a daily basis. I mean, unless they're doing it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We might
And-
need to
and they
set
might be.
some-
And they
Yeah.
could be dirty, but then they're dirty again by 8 o'clock in the morning.
Well, and some of that is because they are restrooms that have the open air area, so we didn't have to put HVAC, so there is dust, dirt,
Yeah.
spiders, things like that. That's kind of part of the
But it was
trade-off.
pretty embarrassing that on Saturday and Sunday, everybody complaining about how dirty the bathrooms were.
And that is something we tell people when they rent the parks for like an event or a tournament, you know, we will clean them Monday through Friday. If you have an event that spans several days, we always tell everybody, we did tell the organizers of that event that, you know, no one's going to come out and clean it Saturday and Sunday because we just don't have the staff, or the budget to pay someone to come out there and do that on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, and it depends on which park. All of our big community parks like Maroni, Festival, Pecan, I was like, I can't name all of it off the top of my head, y'all. Listen to me. Those are 5-day-a-week parks, and then there's some that they get cleaned 3 days a week, just depending on the usage, how many amenities they have there, things like that.
I have noticed Maroni Park, that the men's room consistently has no water
As far as like in the toilets?
anywhere.
Okay.
No sink, no toilet, and I've gone and looked in the ladies' thing, I'm not real loud and check before I go in. But theirs will have water, it's just the men's side for some reason, and of course, then it gets trashed.
Okay. Well, yeah, and especially if y'all see things like
Yeah.
the fact there's no water, please call us and tell us,
I was
because
gonna
that
say,
sounds like
we can
a
report that
maintenance
to
issue or
Al.
something that we need to
Yeah.
look into.
If it's Saturday or
Yeah.
Sunday, I don't wanna call you
But-
on
Yes.
Saturday.
But
You can always
what-
send us an
yeah.
email, and there's that
Yeah,
great
that-
NAC 311 app that you can go on there and, you know, take a picture of it, report it. And especially if there's no water getting to it, it makes me nervous of where the water is going. So I hope there's not a line break anywhere. But we can check.
I have a friend that I called after the last meeting. He does those metal buildings, you know.
Mhm.
And he had just bid a job on a metal cover over a basketball court, like out in Woden or something. And for, basically those courts are a standard size, and so it would kind of be comparable to what it would have cost to get the, what's the court out by, the one that has no cover that's out by,
Richie?
Festival Park?
the one that's over by, Oh, I forget.
Richie?
Is it
I
Richie?
guess so, Richie's the one that has a playground and then it's got a big,
Nice.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so, he said it would run, he bid on the other one that he bid, that was roughly the same size. He bid 100,000 and he lost the bid actually, so somebody came in under that. So, if we're thinking that like, could we get a cover for that basketball court? Just a general number of about 100,000. So going with just, and this is just preliminary, we might be able to even find cheaper. But going with that, that's $76,000 difference in the custom build versus the prefab single. And, you know, you're almost there. You're 3/4 of the way there to getting a new basketball, a cover for a basketball court. So I think it's within our best interest to try to squeeze every dime out of that bond money. Use it where we can, not necessarily, you know, put these swanky bathrooms in every single park. When by just downsizing in certain parks, we can have a basketball cover, a court cover.
There was fear among some of the people on this that at night people would go into these and lock themselves in or stay there because it'd be locked. So the single prefab, correct me if I'm wrong, this was some people could go in there, lock the door, and then just be there. So if we did that, a lot of people, not one of these people on this board, this was a large concern. People going in at night.
Well, there's gotta be a way around that.
Oh, and I do want to add one thing on the restrooms, that I forgot to mention after, I don't think I went over it about what we got in our budget. Our city budget got passed, started October 1, we do have, I think it's $14,000 in there to put automatic locks on the 4 existing restrooms. They'll be essentially timered locks, so that way they will lock at night, they'll reopen in the morning. And so they're a little bit more expensive just because they're having to be retrofit into there. But our desire for, if we went with the custom built and kind of worked on what we were doing now, is to have those retrofit, or have those included in the design price, so they wouldn't be as expensive. But we do have that, so hopefully that will get bid out, sometime in the next month or so, to put those locks on. Cause we'll have to order the locks and then have a contractor, or electrician, excuse me, put them in. Any other thoughts on that? And like I said, we don't have to make a hard and fast declaration on that, and of course with this, as an advisory board, we can have this discussion, pass all of this along to city council and kind of let them know what one of their boards is thinking, and then it's up to council ultimately. But we've definitely been told we can have these conversations and kind of figure out what the best use of this bond money is for the community. So we can do everybody's time, because I know that Rod wanted to say a few things, and then we had one question for y'all about our next Parks Board meeting. So we'll move on to future goals and vision for Parks and Recreation Board.
I've been really looking at Mill Pond, talking to people in the area and other people, what can be done there. I'm all for it only needs 1 bathroom. That's a big budget cutter. 2 bathrooms, it's just gonna sit there. Mr. Montes came up with an idea, and I talked with the people at Wagadoches, one of our local dog runs, and they'd looked at it before. Their one fear was if we were to do this, is what they would like would be a 6-acre, $300,000 dog park. And that if we get another dog park, they'll never get that. The basketball court there is severely cracked, eroded out from underneath, it's collapsing. So that either needs to be rebuilt or just take it out. And what I've seen out there, and I've gone out and paced it, there's more than enough room to put in a nice dog park, bigger than we have down here at Bonita. Take out the broken part of the basketball court. There's enough that's in good shape to leave 1 basket in a nice shooting area. Put the playground over there. Since everything I've read on dog parks, you want to keep the kids away from the dog park. Another place to cut the budget on that park is, it doesn't need a huge parking lot. It doesn't get that much use. The big, huge 3-lane street with curbs, if it gets busy there, you can park on the curb. There was a birthday party there a few weeks ago, and That's what the people did there. So a smaller parking lot, just a sidewalk down to the pavilion, not a big wide paved road. You know, that's gonna cut the cost right there down. And looking at it and just doing some guesstimates, you know, go to Lowe's, how much is a roll of fence, how much is this? And I think if we used a single bathroom there and cut down on the parking, that we can stay within what the city already wants to spend at that park, maybe a little less. And get our dog park that everybody wants.
I
That
don't
would
wanna
give
go to
someone
dog
a
park, but
reason to
okay.
go there. What's going on that I found in the neighborhood is basically most of that land is in the hands of the kids or the grandkids. Multiple people hold the one family lot. They just don't wanna give it up. There are 2 houses, lots out there that recently have been marked by surveyors, like something's about to go on and people move back to the neighborhood. Every policeman I've talked to says, no, they don't have crime out there. Of course, there's hardly anyone living there anymore. But someday that neighborhood will come back. I see some of the Hispanics are coming in and buying the old houses and overhauling them like they will do. I hate to lose the park. I did find in the Texas Forest Service history books, it was a sawmill in 1859 and 1860 that belonged to the Summers family. And they basically cut all the lumber off the side of the hill and then moved on. The dam, part of it is still there. The creek behind it, I don't know how many people have gone up there and really explored. It's a beautiful sandy bottom, clear water creek, runs you around. You can see it because it crosses Tyler Road down at the bottom of the hill there. It's a really nice park, and I hate to lose it. I would love to see that neighborhood come back to life. But I think if we look, and if you don't mind, I will go out there. I put them out once for the dog people. Some wooden stakes, mark them off the areas that I think we could put in the dog park and move the playground. And if y'all, I could get them out there tomorrow night. People could come by and see what I'm talking about and think on it.
We can, and it's funny that you mentioned dog park, because that's definitely come up as a potential location for another dog park, because it does have a lot of
It is
open
in our
areas.
master plan, and I know y'all keep asking us to look around for land, well, most of the land that the city owns right now seems to be either close to the dump. I
Yeah.
already work in that neighborhood. No, you don't wanna build a park or dog park by the dump. There are days where we can't tell which is worse, the dump or the cattle auction.
Yeah, and the good thing about a dog park,
The rest is swamp. and-
One thing to think about, I know we keep talking about a dog park, but we already have a dog park, but is, I'm just gonna throw this out there, I'd like for you guys to think about it, but, some adult, like, have you ever seen in a lot of parks like Memorial in Houston, there's like circuit equipment, so, like all, what?
Soccer trail.
Yeah, okay, so, but it can go all the way, like, the whole entire length of Lanana, it can go, so, in the Schaffner area, you know, you have a pad with a couple of things on that one, and then you run down and there's a pad with a couple of things on that one, and then so on and so forth, and it's like circuit training. I mean, I would much rather see some sort of adult equipment, you know, like bars where you can do pull-ups or stretches or different things, than another dog park, anyway.
and I just mentioned dog park because we do have a separate fund for dog parks.
Okay.
Just because, Joy and, who started it? The dog run? Kenny Rania.
She was kind of like the head of making in charge, but it was basically a group of people that came together that really wanted to either create a new dog park somewhere,
Mhm.
and then there was no funds, so it was a fundraiser each year.
Yeah, so we just bring up dog park just because we have a pot of money and we've been looking for a
Yeah.
spot to spend it. It's the only thing we can spend it on.
And I'm looking
Uh,
at all these apartments that are being built within a mile of that place.
Within a mile of Mill Creek?
Yes. You know, Pearl and Austin.
And we've heard from the dog park people, some different advocates for the dog park, program several times over the years I've been on the board. With that specifically, they need larger space
Bigger
than what they
space, yeah.
currently have.
And
And-
you talk
and
about
better-
larger dog, big dog.
Right, right, and more separation between the small dogs and the large dogs and all that. So there were several concerns that have been brought up through the years about those.
And that can certainly be something we add to a future Parks Board agendas, like exploring the dog park idea again, and then also exploring, are there any other amenities, like you mentioned, like circuit training, things that maybe aren't master planned, but you know, hey, these could be easy wins, that we've just seen at other parks that we like, so we can certainly add that on there.
And then we could use some signs, like at Fun that says pets must be on a leash.
Yeah, and we've added those to some, and then we've started adding, to the existing park signs. And we're gonna
The
add some more, cause we have,
waste
now that we have our
cans,
budget
yeah.
years rolled over, we
Yeah.
can start spending some of our money again.
Yeah, and then the waste cans, I know that you've
Mhm.
seen, those have been very, very helpful, and you will at the con for sure.
So yeah, we will add those, to our list for one of our future meetings. One thing before we let all you all go, I know it's past 5. Our next meeting is supposed to be December 23rd. I don't think anybody wants to be here for that. I won't be here. Joy won't be here either. So just because of staff availability, you know, Christmas, things like that, we wanted to pitch 2 different next meeting dates for y'all, to see which one would work for the majority of schedules. So we were looking at either moving it up an entire month and doing it November 25th, or looking at December 16th, which would be just moving it up a week from our regularly scheduled date. So we were hoping y'all could look at your calendars and tell us which date would work for y'all the best.
I think December 16th.
I like
Yeah.
the 16.
16th.
Yeah, November 25th is the Monday before
Yes.
Thanksgiving,
Yes.
so.
Yes.
I know, that's why I was like, I don't know if anybody's traveling yet. I mean, I'll still be in town. But we just figured December 23rd wouldn't work for everybody. All right.
So December 16th,
Mhm.
is that a good date? Okay.
Okay, well, that is all we have for today. So we are adjourned at 5:09. Thank y'all.
Thank you.